Imagine for a second that you are holding a beautifully rendered, incredibly detailed map of your city.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right, it shows every street, every bridge, every little alleyway. But there's a catch here.
There's always a catch.
Always. Someone, somewhere, deliberately redrew a handful of the intersections on this map.
Oh, wow. So they tampered with it.
Exactly. They made it look like a bridge exists where there's actually a cliff, and they labeled a dead end as a major highway.
That's incredibly dangerous.
Right, because now if you use that map, you aren't just going to get a little lost. You might actually drive off a ledge.
Yeah, or route an entire fleet of ambulances into a brick wall.
Exactly. When someone deliberately alters our shared map of reality, they aren't just telling a fib, they're setting actual traps in the physical world.
It's a great way to put it.
Well, welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're taking you into a document that looks at those map makers.
The people who deliberately lie to the public.
Yeah. And this document proposes a system to stop them. That is, it's so brutally precise and so unforgiving that it almost defies modern comprehension.
It really does. We are examining a thought experiment today that treats a lie not as, like, a PR mistake.
Right.
And not as political spin, but as a literal cosmic crime that requires physical, violent correction.
It's intense. We are diving into a highly provocative newsletter from the Multiverse Journal.
And this one is titled Index Number 2237, A Thomistic Solution for Truth Enforcement and Greater Justice.
Yeah, it was written by stevenwork, published on April 9th, 2026. And the core topic here is just staggering.
It's completely radical.
It is. The author is proposing this extreme overhaul of the modern justice system. He wants to ruthlessly punish what he calls false witnessing.
Which is his term for deliberate lying.
Right, deliberate lying. And he wants to punish it using public shaming, physical pain, and even capital punishment.
And the wild part is, he justifies every single terrifying aspect of this using the medieval moral theology of St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah, which is it's a massive shift from how we view justice today.
It operates as this meticulous architectural blueprint for an alternative reality.
Totally.
It's a world where truth is literally enforced by the taser and the executioner, and it's all justified by 13th century natural law.
Now, before we explore a single detail of how this system actually works, we have a critical mission today.
And a very mandatory disclaimer for you.
Yes, absolutely mandatory. Our mission is to deeply examine the philosophical and legal thought experiment presented in this text.
But we need to stress this up front.
I cannot stress this enough, honestly. This source document contains highly inflammatory, politically charged, and religiously extreme rhetoric.
It really does. It includes intense anti-Zionist statements and severe accusations against modern governments.
Exactly. And I want to be crystal clear with you. We are not taking sides.
No, not at all.
Nor are we endorsing any of the viewpoints, religious framing, or political grievances in this content.
We are acting purely as impartial guides here.
Right. We are just breaking down the exact ideas and arguments contained in the original source material.
So that you can understand the architecture of this author's proposed system.
Right. Our function here is just to dissect the mechanics of his argument.
We are looking at the load-bearing walls of his philosophy, basically.
Yeah, we are evaluating how he constructs his logic, regardless of how extreme the rhetoric covering those walls might be.
Exactly. So to understand the mechanics of these medieval punishments, we first have to look at the author's view of the modern world.
Right, because you don't prescribe radical chemotherapy unless you believe the patient is, riddled with terminal cancer.
And his opening framing is explosive.
Okay, let's unpack this. He describes the modern American government, and really modern society as a whole, as a soul-dead, demonically possessed golem zombie corpse.
Yeah, golem zombie corpse. And that terminology is deeply deliberate.
He isn't just saying the system is inefficient.
No, not at all. Calling the state a golem zombie corpse invokes really specific mythological and theological imagery.
Right, a golem is an animated husk.
Exactly. It's devoid of a true soul, and it just operates on mechanical instructions.
And a corpse implies that the life force has already departed.
Yes, and for him, that life force is divine truth. He starts at a 10 out of 10 on the apocalyptic scale to establish this baseline.
To show that the institutions you and I rely on every day aren't just broken, but they're actively, supernaturally hostile to human flourishing.
Right. And he outlines massive geopolitical grievances to back up this apocalyptic view.
He really goes all in. He explicitly accuses what he calls Zionist witches and an enslaved managerial class of orchestrating global genocides.
He specifically mentions Gaza and Iran in his examples there,
Yeah, he does. And he claims these forces are systematically stripping the wealth of the working class.
which he refers to using the term goyim.
Right. He even rewrites historical narratives. He claims that conflicts as far back as the American Civil War were intentionally orchestrated.
To centralize demonic power, according to him.
It is just a vast, sweeping conspiracy framework.
What's fascinating here is how he argues that modern populations have been conditioned.
Oh, yeah, conditioned into NPCs, he says. Non-playable characters.
Right. He claims that we are mind-raped, legally castrated, and trained to accept blatant lies.
Like the existence of weapons of mass destruction, right?
Exactly. He says we just accept it without ever fighting back.
You know, I read this opening and I kept picturing a horrifying theme park.
Oh, a theme park. How so?
Well, imagine you go to a theme park where the politicians and the judges, the people we see on television as our powerful leaders.
Right.
The author describes them as rotting animatronic figures. Like they look human from a distance, but they are completely dead inside.
That's a creepy image.
It is. And they're being operated by malicious, offstage engineers who are pulling the wires and just feeding them scripts.
And what about the public in this analogy?
The public, the NPCs, are just standing around eating cotton candy watching this animatronic show.
Completely unaware.
Totally unaware that the figures are corpses. And the whole theme park is designed to harvest their wallets and their souls.
That's exactly it. And his worldview really demands that kind of visceral imagery. Rhetorically, he has to establish this state of absolute existential emergency.
Because he needs to justify what comes next.
Exactly. Think about the function of a normal justice system.
Right.
A traditional court assumes that society is basically healthy. Crimes are rare aberrations that just need to be corrected so we can get back to normal.
Right, but the author flips that entirely.
He does. He argues that the system itself is the crime.
Because it lets the biggest liars get away with it.
More than that, actually. He believes that because modern justice systems fail to punish the catastrophic lies that cause wars and decay, the system is actively instructing the public.
Like teaching them a lesson.
Yes. The silence of justice in the face of great lies teaches everyday citizens that truth is optional.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. If a politician lies and 1 million people die, and then that politician retires with a pension and a book deal.
The state has basically just taught the populace that reality doesn't matter.
Precisely. You can't just pass a new bill or elect a new judge in a system that operates that way.
Because if the system is a zombie, you don't just give it a vitamin supplement.
That's right. It's already dead.
You need something fundamentally different to revive it.
And the author believes a modern secular justice system cannot fix this decay.
Why not?
Because a secular system lacks a true, objective moral foundation. In his view, a secular court just manages competing power dynamics.
It doesn't enforce truth with a capital T.
Exactly. So to find a cure for this total societal collapse, he decides the Enlightenment was a mistake.
And he reaches way back to the 13th century.
Yes. To fix a world destroyed by lies, he has to define what a lie actually is and why it's so incredibly dangerous.
And he grounds his entire proposal in the theology of St. Thomas Aquinas.
But he specifically notes this is the pre-1958 Catholic tradition.
Yeah, why 1958? That seems like an incredibly specific line in the sand. I mean, what happened in 1958?
1958 is the year Pope Pius XII died.
Oh, okay.
In traditionalist Catholic circles, Pius XII is often viewed as the last pope before the sweeping modernizing reforms of the Second Vatican Council.
Which took place in the early 1960s, right?
Right. So by specifying pre-1958, the author is signaling a complete rejection of modern theological interpretations.
He's rejecting the softer, more pastoral approach of the contemporary church.
Exactly. He is anchoring his system in the rigid, scholastic, uncompromising natural law tradition of the Middle Ages.
Okay, that makes sense. So, leaning on that rigid tradition, he defines false witnessing as a triple offense.
Yes, 3 distinct levels of offense.
First, he says a lie is an offense against God, because God is truth, veritas ipsum.
Right.
So lying isn't just breaking a social contract, it's an act of cosmic defiance against the very nature of the Creator.
Aquinas argued that human reason is a divine gift, and it's meant to align with reality.
And reality is grounded in the mind of God.
Exactly. When you deliberately assert a falsehood, you are taking your God-given rational faculties and weaponizing them to attack the foundation of existence.
That is heavy, so it creates a cosmic disorder.
Yeah. You aren't merely saying, oh, I told my boss I was sick when I wasn't.
Right.
You are declaring I have actively chosen to wage war against the architecture of reality itself.
Yeah. Then there's the second offense, against justice.
Yes.
He argues that a lie steals a person's reputation, or it steals an accurate historical account,
And he claims this is a theft far worse than stealing material goods.
because it can't easily be returned, right?
Think about the mechanics of restitution here, which is really vital for his later punishments.
Okay.
If someone steals your car, the police can find the car, impound it, and give it back to you. The balance of justice is restored.
Sure. But if someone spreads a deliberate, massive lie that ruins your reputation,
Or if a government falsifies a historical event that causes two communities to hate each other for a century.
how do you return that?
Yeah.
You can't just hand someone a pristine reputation back in a manila envelope,
Exactly. The damage permeates the fabric of society invisibly.
which feeds right into the third offense, against charity.
Yes. Deliberately withholding the truth violates the duty of active goodwill toward your neighbor.
You aren't just being quiet. You are actively harming them by denying them the map they need to navigate the world safely.
Going back to your map analogy,
Yes. And this leads to what he calls the cascading harm of lies.
which is a crucial concept for him.
Right. He argues that lies don't just stop with the person who hears them. A lie taught by parents or institutions persists for centuries.
It corrupts the epistemic tradition of a whole community.
The epistemic tradition. Break that down for us.
It simply means the way a society passes down knowledge. It's how we know what is true over generations.
Okay.
So when a lie enters that stream, it pollutes the entire downstream culture.
Let's pause and test this with an analogy.
Yeah.
The author talked about cascading harm, like poisoning a town's water supply. It doesn't just hurt the person who takes the first sip. It sickens the children, it ruins the crops, it taints the soil for generations.
It's a total disaster.
But I have to push back on how a court handles this, like practically.
Okay, what's the pushback?
How do we actually define a deliberate lie versus an honest mistake?
That's a fair question.
What if I accidentally dropped something in the water supply? What if I thought I was adding a purification chemical, but the label was wrong and it was actually poison?
Right.
Does this medieval court drag me out and execute me for an accident?
The author actually anticipates that exact objection. He draws on Aquinas to separate a blind witch hunt from a precise judicial process.
Okay, so he makes a distinction.
Yes. He draws a strict philosophical and legal line between what he calls formal falsehood and material falsehood.
Let's define those for the listener, because that sounds important.
It is. A material falsehood is a sincere, well-intentioned error.
Okay.
Imagine you look up at the sky while wearing green-tinted glasses, and you genuinely tell someone the sky is green.
You are materially wrong. The sky is blue.
Right. But you aren't lying because your intent was to speak the truth as you perceived it.
Got it. And a formal falsehood.
A formal falsehood is deliberate. You take off the glasses, you see the sky is blue, but you deliberately assert that it is green just to deceive the person next to you.
Ah, so intent is everything here.
Yes. The author's proposed system only punishes formal falsehoods.
It requires intent. It only targets deliberate assertions of what one knows to be false.
Or deliberate misframing of the truth to create a false impression.
Or culpable omission. Wait, that last one, culpable omission. Lying by omission counts as a formal falsehood.
Emphatically, yes.
Really?
Yes. If a reasonable person in your position would know to provide certain crucial information, and you deliberately withhold it specifically to deceive or manipulate?
That is a formal falsehood.
Yes. Return to your water supply analogy.
Okay.
If you genuinely thought you were adding a purifier, you made a material error. You might need to be retrained or fired from your job at the water plant.
But you aren't punished as a false witness. You didn't wage war on God.
Exactly. But if you knew the barrel contained poison and you poured it in while telling the town council the water was perfectly safe.
Or if you knew the pipes were leaching lead and you stayed perfectly silent during the town hall meeting.
Yes. That is the triple offense.
Wow. Okay, so if lying is a literal crime against God and reality, and it poisons the generational water supply.
How does he punish it?
Exactly. How does the author actually propose we punish it? Here's where it gets really interesting.
It really does.
Because this is where the text leaves the realm of abstract theology and becomes viscerally, shockingly physical.
We enter the mechanics of 13th century corporeal punishment.
Stripped of its historical dust and updated with 21st century technology.
Right. He builds this on the Thomistic forms of punishment required for true justice.
Which are retributive, deterrence, rehabilitation, and protection.
Yes. And the author insists that a punishment is only valid if it hits all four of those.
All four.
Yes, that requirement for all four is the linchpin of his logic. Let's look at them.
Okay, let's go through them. Retributive.
Retributive isn't just about anger. He calls it objective moral mathematics.
Moral
A
mathematics.
crime created an imbalance in the universe, and pain of equal weight must be applied to restore the scale.
Then there's deterrence.
Yeah.
That's the public consequence, right?
Yes, others must see the pain so they don't replicate the crime.
And rehabilitation.
That is the correction of the offender's soul through penance.
And finally, protection. That shields the common good by removing the liar from a position of influence.
Exactly. If a modern prison sentence only protects society but fails to rehabilitate the soul or balance the moral math.
Aquinas and this author would say it's an unjust punishment.
Right. The core mechanism he uses to achieve this balanced moral equation is something called the infamia protocol.
Infamia. Which translates to the public loss of a good reputation.
Historically, infamia was a concept in Roman and canon law.
What did it mean back then?
It meant a person was legally stripped of their honor. They couldn't testify in court. They couldn't hold office.
They were officially designated as untrustworthy by the state.
Right. And Aquinas considered a good reputation to be a genuine, tangible human good, just like money or a physical house.
Therefore, taking someone's reputation away publicly and permanently is a valid, measurable form of punishment.
Yes, but he doesn't just want to take away their Twitter verification badge.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. He enforces infamia through the graduated corrective pain protocol.
Which is intense.
That's an understatement. Convicted liars undergo a highly publicized broadcast event where they are subjected to electrically administered corrective pain.
tasering.
Literally tasering.
Public, meticulously calibrated electrical shock.
He outlines specific medical exclusions for this tasering, though.
Yeah, he tries to make it sound clinical.
He does. If you have a pacemaker, if you're pregnant, if you're frail, or if you have a documented mental incapacity, you are excluded from the electrical shocks.
And the author claims this proves his system is about precise proportionality.
And not mere cruelty. But look, I gotta say, isn't this just state-sanctioned torture dressed up in theological robes?
That is the immediate modern reaction, yes.
Like, how can an electrical shock rehabilitate someone's moral compass? It feels like trying to cure a software virus on a computer by physically hitting the hard drive with a hammer.
That's a really good analogy for how modern people view it.
You're addressing a complex moral and intellectual problem with brute hardware violence.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the author's worldview completely rejects your separation of the software and the hardware.
What do you mean?
Modern people tend to separate them. The mind and morality sit up here in the abstract clouds,
Right.
and the body sits down here in the physical dirt. But Thomistic philosophy views the human person as a profoundly integrated whole.
You are a body-soul composite.
Exactly. The author is reviving ancient corporeal punishment because he argues that physical pain is the natural language of consequence.
The natural language of consequence. Wow, that's a haunting phrase.
It is. Think about a toddler. When a child touches a hot stove, the pain teaches them immediately and viscerally not to do it again.
Right, the pain bypasses complex intellect and speaks directly to the reality of the danger.
Yes. The author believes that modern society has become utterly squeamish about physical punishment.
And he views that squeamishness not as enlightened progress, but as a deep moral failure.
Exactly. We have retreated into building sterile, concrete prisons. We hide our punishments away behind high walls.
Because of that, the community never actually sees justice being done.
And the offender never feels the physical weight of their abstract crime.
To the author, the taser isn't a hammer hitting a hard drive.
No.
It is the physical manifestation of the moral pain the liar just inflicted on reality.
The pain forces the abstract lie to become real to the liar.
Man, but tasering is just for the lower tiers of his system, right?
Yeah.
Tier 1, Tier 2, maybe Tier 3. Everyday formal falsehoods.
Right, that's just the baseline.
So what happens when a lie causes a massive global catastrophe? What happens when a lie causes a war?
The system scales up to its absolute most extreme limits. We enter tiers 4 and 5.
Mass casualty, public false witnessing.
Yes. He introduces the ancient concept of lex talionis.
The law of retaliation, an eye for an eye.
Exactly. The author lays out a highly specific, grueling hypothetical.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a politician lies to start a war and soldiers burn to death in Humvees because of that specific lie,
Oh my God.
the author mandates that the politician must be executed by burning.
Executed by burning.
Hmm.
It is the terrifying ultimate application of his objective moral mathematics.
It really is.
He defines a specific type of this extreme lie as treason, but his definition of treason is a compound crime.
Right, it's false witnessing plus civic betrayal plus mass casualties.
He states that serving a foreign power is the ultimate betrayal of the perfect community.
And he constantly targets Zionism and Israel in this section.
Right, framing foreign lobbying as an existential demonic threat.
Yes. The punishment for this apex of temporal crime is a globally broadcast capital punishment using lex talionis.
But think about the psychological impact of this on you, on me, on the public.
It would be immense.
If we broadcast executions that directly mirror the horrors of war, like burning a politician alive on global television,
Yeah.
aren't we just traumatizing the entire global populace? It turns justice into a mandatory state-sponsored snuff film under the guise of deterrence.
The author actually anticipates that exact revulsion. He knows modern readers will find it barbaric.
How could you not?
But he leans entirely into the Thomistic justification. He argues that the public must witness the exact, unvarnished cost of the lie.
But why? Why force everyone to watch that?
Because the original lie was massive, abstract and hidden in sterile bureaucratic language.
Right, words like strategic intervention or collateral damage.
Or regime change. Those words hide the physical reality of burning Humvees and destroyed cities.
So he thinks a sterile execution doesn't work.
Right. He believes a sterile, hidden execution by lethal injection in a quiet room completely fails to restore the moral balance.
The community has to see the abstract lie translated back into the visceral, physical reality it caused.
Yes. Only by confronting that horror, he argues, will a deterrence be strong enough to actually prevent the next generation of politicians from lying.
He's basically saying that if a politician knew with absolute, terrifying certainty that they would personally suffer the exact physical fate of the soldiers they send to die under false pretenses,
They would never tell the lie in the first place.
the lie wouldn't survive the fear.
That is the calculation. It is the ultimate terrifying deterrent.
In his mind, it's not meant to be a snuff film for sadistic entertainment.
No, it is designed to be a moment of absolute civic horror that permanently alters the psychological landscape of anyone seeking power.
But a politician rarely spreads a massive lie alone. A president or a prime minister doesn't just stand on a street corner and shout.
Right, they need infrastructure.
They need microphones. They need television networks. They need social media algorithms. So how does this document handle the people holding the cameras?
This is where the framework leaves the government and comes for the private sector.
Oh boy.
It is arguably the most practically disruptive part of his entire proposal.
So what does this all mean for the media?
Well, he details the theological doctrine of cooperation in evil.
The system targets the enablers, the media owners, the newspaper editors, the broadcasters, the financiers.
And he breaks them down into specific tiers.
First, you have formal cooperators. These
Yeah.
are people who knowingly spread lies to cause harm.
Right. They face the exact same capital or physical punishments as the original liar.
So if you broadcast the lie that started the war, and you knew it was a lie, you go to the stake with the politician.
The guilt is shared entirely. You provided the vector for the disease.
Wow. Then you have proximate material cooperators.
Yes.
These are journalists or editors who maybe didn't know for a fact it was a lie, but they failed the reasonable person fact-check standard.
They didn't do their due diligence. They were reckless.
Right. They face public tasering and having all their personal assets disgorged.
And finally, you have institutional enablers.
If a network systematically pushes lies, the entire corporation is dissolved, wiped off the map.
Furthermore, he demands the total abolition of all artificial immunities.
Governmental, diplomatic, corporate, professional.
He calls them perversions of law.
His core rule is, office amplifies accountability. It does not reduce it.
Yes.
The analogy I use to understand this is the getaway driver in a bank robbery.
That's a perfect analogy.
The author is treating the CEO of a news network exactly the same as the guy behind the wheel of the getaway car.
You didn't pull the trigger inside the bank.
You didn't write the script for the lie,
Yeah.
but you drove the car.
Her.
You provided the platform that made the escape possible.
So you get the exact same felony murder charge.
Exactly.
Your getaway driver analogy perfectly encapsulates how Aquinas views cooperation in evil. If your platform makes the massive harm possible, you own a literal piece of that harm.
But let's extrapolate the terrifying practical application of this.
It would mean the total immediate destruction of the modern media and legal apparatus as we know it today.
Because almost every modern institution we have relies on some form of legal immunity to function.
Consider the architecture of modern privilege.
Okay.
A modern politician has legislative immunity. They can say almost anything on the floor of the Senate and not be sued for slander.
Right, which allows them to debate freely.
Diplomats have diplomatic immunity so they can negotiate in hostile countries without fear of arrest.
Corporations have the corporate veil, which protects the personal assets of the CEO if the company makes a mistake and goes bankrupt.
Journalists have professional protections regarding confidential sources and liability shields against defamation unless actual malice is proven.
And the author looks at all of those shields and says, no.
Right. He says these are human fictions. They are demonic legal loopholes designed to protect powerful liars from the consequences of natural law.
He believes that high office should be a zone of maximum vulnerability to punishment, whereas today it is a zone of maximum protection.
Office amplifies accountability.
Right. If you have a bigger microphone, your lie does infinitely more damage, so your punishment must be infinitely worse.
Think about it. If a random person on the street lies about you, maybe 10 people hear it. The damage to your reputation is small, localized.
But if a primetime news anchor lies about you,
10 million people hear it. The author argues that the anchor didn't just pass on a lie. By utilizing their massive, privileged platform, they multiplied the harm by 1 million.
therefore, their physical punishment must be scaled up to match the amplified damage.
It turns the entire modern concept of elite privilege completely upside down.
So no more hiding behind, I was just reading the teleprompter.
Or I was acting in my official capacity as a State Department spokesperson.
If the words leave your mouth and a court determines they are a deliberate lie, the taser or the executioner is coming for you personally, and your corporate shield means absolutely nothing.
The corporate veil is torn. The individual soul is held to account.
But the system doesn't stop at adults. It doesn't just reshape governments and newsrooms and boardrooms.
No, it goes much deeper.
It reaches right into the home. It fundamentally restructures family law and the concept of childhood itself.
The application of his theology becomes incredibly intimate here, and for many people, deeply unsettling.
He introduces the concept of the officium parentis, the duty of parents.
Yes.
Under this proposed system, parents can be punished for the adult crimes of their children, provided the parents failed in their duty of moral formation.
Let's clarify the legal mechanism here. He isn't saying you punish the parent instead of the child.
Right, the adult child who lied still goes to the town square and gets tasered.
But after that happens, the court then turns around and investigates the parents.
Did you teach this child to lie? Did you neglect their moral education when they were young?
If the court finds you negligent, the parent is punished for their own separate crime, the crime of failing the officium parentis.
And he uses this to launch a massive, targeted attack on no-fault divorce and modern family courts.
He really goes after them.
He states that if a parent initiated a no-fault divorce, or if a judge or a social worker separated a fit parent, and he specifically notes this is usually the father from a child,
those individuals are held legally responsible for the child's future crimes.
Let's pause and look at the logistics of this. Blaming a family court judge or a divorcing spouse for a crime someone commits 20 years later because of a divorce decree.
It's quite a stretch.
And mathematically, that seems impossible to prove. The causal chain is miles long. How does a court in 2046 prove that a lie told today was caused by a divorce in 2026?
The author would argue that the natural law is fundamentally clear on human development.
Which means what, practically?
A child needs both parents in a unified household for proper, balanced moral formation.
Okay.
If you, as a judge or a social worker, arbitrarily sever that bond without extreme, just cause severe abuse, you have actively, permanently damaged that child's moral foundation.
Therefore, when that damaged foundation eventually collapses 20 years later into a massive public lie or an act of treason.
Your signature on that divorce decree is the origin point of the causal chain. He removes the statute of limitations entirely for this kind of moral negligence.
The scope of accountability is dizzying.
Yeah.
Everyone is responsible for the downstream effects of their actions forever.
Yes.
And it applies directly to the kids themselves, starting very young. He sets the age of accountability at 15 years old.
He bases this on a biological puberty, and he explicitly, aggressively rejects the modern ages of 18 or 21.
If you are 15 years old in this world, you are fully subject to the taser and the executioner.
To his medieval mindset, the modern extension of childhood into the late teens or 20s is an artificial coddling fiction.
It is a societal luxury that prevents young people from taking reality seriously.
Once you have the biological capacity to create life, you have the moral capacity to understand the destruction of life through lies.
To make absolutely sure they take it seriously, he institutes something called mandatory civic witnessing.
This part is truly shocking.
Before turning 15, a child must attend a public tasering or execution of a convicted liar.
And they can't just go watch it from the bleachers with their friends.
No. They must be accompanied by their father or a male moral substitute if the father is absent.
The father has to explain to the child that the physical pain they are witnessing is what God and right reason require.
He has to look his kid in the eye while someone is screaming and warn them that they will face the exact same physical agony if they lie.
This raises an important question.
Because forcing a 14-year-old to watch a public execution or electrocution sounds like state-mandated child abuse.
Exactly.
It is a twisted version of a scared straight program, but instead of visiting a local prison to hear a tough lecture from an inmate, your dad takes you to a town square to watch someone be legally tortured.
How do you react to that as a modern person? It induces horror.
Absolute horror.
But it raises a profound philosophical question about how we form morality in the young. The Thomistic justification here is rooted in human psychology.
Okay, unpack that.
Aquinas believed that virtue isn't formed just by reading books, memorizing rules, or hearing abstract lectures in a classroom.
Right, because kids ignore those anyway.
Exactly. Virtue is formed by habit and by visceral emotional experience. You have to train the emotions and the imagination, not just the intellect.
So the kid has to feel the fear in their bones.
The author would call it moral gravity rather than mere terror.
Moral gravity.
He believes a child raised in a modern world, a world without visible physical consequences for lying, develops a malformed moral imagination.
They grow up thinking reality is soft.
Yes. They think words don't have weight, that you can post anything online or say anything to a friend without consequence.
By forcing them to see the physical pain that a lie generates, guided by a father figure who calmly explains the objective justice of the punishment,
the author believes you are hardwiring their developing brain to revere the truth.
you are giving them a concrete, physical anchor to the concept of justice right before they cross the threshold into full societal accountability at 15.
That's the logic.
Wow. We have explored a truly chilling, exhaustive manifesto today.
We really have.
This document fuses extreme modern political grievances, deep anger over modern wars, media manipulation, globalism, the decay of the nuclear family.
And it fuses all of that with 13th century theology.
To imagine a world where truth is enforced by the taser and the executioner.
It's an entire ecosystem of thought. It forces us to examine what happens when you take the desire for truth and push it to the absolute limits of physical enforcement.
And bringing it back to you, the listener, think about your own media diet.
It's overwhelming.
We all feel the exhaustion of living in a post-truth world. We are constantly surrounded by misinformation, AI deepfakes, politicians who lie without consequence.
And massive institutions that seem to protect themselves instead of the public.
There's a real, palpable lack of accountability, and it is deeply exhausting.
Absolutely.
This document shows us the absolute terrifying extreme of what a cure for that exhaustion might look like if pushed to fundamentalist limits.
It shows us what happens when you decide the murky diagnostic landscape of truth has to be made perfectly binary through the application of physical force.
It takes our very valid modern desire for accountability and turns the dial up so violently that the dial breaks off.
That's exactly it.
Which leaves us with a final lingering thought for you to mull over. A question we haven't directly discussed yet, but that sits at the very heart of this deep dive.
It's the ultimate question here.
Let's say a society actually managed to implement this perfectly. Let's say the courts are established, the tasers are calibrated, the executions are broadcast globally, the journalists are terrified, and the 14-year-olds have watched the consequences.
Okay.
Everyone is absolutely perfectly terrified of the physical agony that a false statement might bring.
Right.
In that world, would truth actually flourish?
That is the paradox.
Or would the absolute paralyzing fear of making an accidental mistake, of being wrongly accused by a tribunal of a formal falsehood create a society of total silence.
A world where no one dares to speak at all.
No one theorizes, no one questions, because the physical cost of being wrong is simply too high. Is the cure of perfect enforcement worse than the disease of a lie?
That is the inescapable paradox of demanding absolute perfection from flawed human beings.
Thank you for joining us on this intense deep dive into the architecture of a very dark landscape.
It's been wild.
Understanding how people map out these extremes helps us navigate our own reality. We'll catch you on the next one.